So in this episode, we're going to be using techniques that I've picked up from Virtual Riot, Cone Sound, and during my time at audio engineering school. So this is going to be a combination of strategies to culminate into one method, or something like that. Today, we're recording Foley to get percussive sounds to make into perk samples and perk and top loops. We're going to use it to make sound effects and unique sounds to turn into effects and hits and incorporate into later sound design sessions. We're going to get rustling and other consistent textures that we can layer into things. We will use a variety of these sounds when we design kicks and snares, and then sprinkled all throughout the sample pack that we'll be creating. So to start this whole sound design process, we're going to start by recording Foley. We're going to do this because Foley will give your sounds a unique vibe because they're sounds that you've recorded, and it's also going to give a lot of your sounds a more natural and organic vibe. We're recording Foley first because we're going to be using these recordings in a lot of places throughout this entire process. So it all starts here with good recordings. So let's go over the process. The things you're going to need are basically just a recording device and ideally some headphones. If you want to get fancy, a stand for your recording device. Now, this recording device can be a few different things. It can be as simple as your phone. Modern smartphones have pretty good microphones on them nowadays. You could rent a field recorder from your local music supply shop. Renting a field recorder for a weekend's like $15, and they've got pretty good quality. You want headphones so you can listen back to your recordings and make sure that they're good quality and, there's not other things going on in the background. You want to be able to listen back to your recordings so if you have to do them again, you can do them again right then and not wait all the way until you bring it into your DAW or like when you're editing them. You can get more fancy than a field recorder or your smartphone, but like you really don't need to unless you're going for like ASMR type stuff. And somebody else can show you that video. That's not what we're doing here. We're making big ol' electronic music sounds. So yeah, a smartphone, if you like a smartphone attachment microphone, if you want to go the extra little bit. Having a stand for your recording device helps so you can like have it set up in the place that you're doing recordings. So you have both hands free to be able to do like little performances with whatever you're trying to get recordings of. So before we start recording, there's a few settings you want to look at. You want to make sure you have enough space, like storage, memory space in the device you're using for recording. You should make sure you have a plan, an import plan, for after you're done recording, so you know ahead of time you're definitely going to be able to get the recordings off of the device and onto the computer that you're going to be using for editing. It would suck to do all your recording and then realize that you don't have anything with an SD card reader or something like that. When you are setting up your recordings, it's not a bad idea to check out the file format that the device is going to be recording to. Ideally, some sort of lossless file format like .waves, and then sample rate, 44.1's fine. And if there's a bit depth, if you have access to something with 32-bit float bit depth, definitely use that because it's way higher quality and harder to clip the signal. If not, whatever the highest bit depth that your device has, and that'll usually be 24. Again, if 32 is available, go with 32 for sure. You'll want to look at the input gain of the device when you go to do recordings. Have your device near whatever Foley you're going to be recording and do a little bit of sounds at the level and proximity that you'll be recording them at so you can see your input signal. You want to make sure you have lots of input signal without clipping it, because clipping will often ruin these recordings. So err on the side of caution. Having it a little bit lower is better than having it a little bit higher and maybe clipping it a bit here. If your device has a built-in recording limiter, definitely use it because that'll help with clipping as well. And another setting you can check out is the polar pattern of the device you're going to be recording with. Some of them will have like a cardioid pattern or XY or mid-side. They all have different ups and downs. If you're using one of the polar patterns that are stereo,
be aware of the position around the microphone that your sound source is when you're recording, so your stereo image isn't super lopsided when you're done all your recording. So it isn't all on like the right side or all on the left side, because then you'll need to do some doctoring. That can often involve turning those signals from stereo into mono to, capture whatever side of the signal is best. So when you go to do your actual recordings, what you're going to be worried about most now is mic placement. The things we're going to worry most about here is the closer you get your mic to your sound source is the more likely you will clip the microphone. And if you have your microphone too far away from your sound source, you can get too much of the room sound or reverb from the room. So determining where that sweet spot is the first thing you'll want to do. Next, make sure, if you have control of this, turning off any devices that are making background sound, heat pumps, fans, and when you go to do recordings, be aware that if you're moving the microphone around, you might be causing big booming sounds. So be careful about moving the microphone while you're recording or even hitting its stand. So when you're doing all these, make sure to do a test recording. Do a test recording of some of the sounds that you're going to be trying to capture and listening for clipping, distortion on the loudest sounds. Determine if you're hearing too much of the room. Maybe you can stand to get the mic closer and take a listen to hear if any of the background sounds are going to be problematic, and take a listen to hear if you've bonked the microphone or the microphone stand, or moving it, shuffling it has caused big booming sounds. At this point, do your recordings. Try and get a variety of sounds, and when you're done getting those sounds, listen back to it and decide if you've captured those sounds well. There's always the thought of, we can fix it in post, but that's like, getting a good recording is way better than trying to fix it in post. There's only so much you can do with the tools that you have. So when you go to do your actual recording, we're going to do the actual recording now, you want to get a wide variety of different sounds, as much of a variety as you can. Try and get percussive sounds, like hitting different materials on different materials, shaking devices, shaking containers of things, doing things with tools, going around your kitchen, going around your place of work, if it's okay to do that. Trying to find like sound effects, things like lighting a lighter, or like snapping fingers, recording like vegetables making different sounds, percussive sounds, textures of like crinkling and rustling different things, just a huge variety. All right, so I'm going to take this, and as you can see, I've got my headphones for some active monitoring. I'm going to throw them on my ears. And now I've got them plugged into the mic. So now I can hear through the mic, and I got an idea of what's being recorded. I'm taking a listen. Do I hear any background noise? Let me listen. Not a ton. That's pretty good. All right, so let's get some recordings. I've just got a few things here that I'm going to make some noise in front of the camera with, or in front of the mic. And kind of the main problem I find with active listening is you got a cord on your headphones, and that's going to bonk on things. So right up until, like, I'm doing some active listening right up until I go to do like little performances with the Foley stuff, with the like items I have here. When I go to do that, I'm taking the headphones out so the cord doesn't bop around and make little recording bonks.
let's try and get it right in the middle. Not too close, because if this flickers, it means I'm hitting the top. We have a limiter on there, but sometimes limiters can distort things too. So I'm going to try and get a performance that isn't making that light blink, just to be safe. That one wants to blink no matter what. Charades. Ooh, bonked everything. Let's get some with just the little keys.
Alright, we're done recording. We're going back into our studio, our editing space, and we're going to import our files. Some of my files are on an SD card from a field recorder, and some of my recordings are on my phone. With the field recorder, I have to use an SD card, and I import them from there, and from my phone, I just throw them in Dropbox, and then I can drag them into Ableton on my computer. When I drag them into Ableton, I make sure they're all unwarped, so they'll play back at the proper speed, and you can do a first wave of cleaning now. If you have something like RX11 by Isotope, this is perfect for this situation, because you can use stuff like spectral denoise, the declipper, dehum, and it'll use an algorithm to do a lot of these things for you. If you don't have Isotope RX number whatever, you can do quite a bit with a gate and an EQ. With a gate, you set your threshold and release to the right settings to be triggered by the sound that you want and only stay open long enough to just grab the main sound and leave out any background sounds. And then use an EQ to sweep to find the problematic frequencies, and when you find them, just with a sharp Q curve, duck them down. If you have something with a dynamic EQ, use that here, that's even better. Once you've done your first cleaning pass, you can go about first wave of sampling. I like to do this in a couple waves, where first wave, I'm just going through and selecting the sounds that I think sound cool and dragging them to a different track. Just picking the sounds that I think sound cool, just grabbing around them and moving on, trying to do this process as quickly as I can. After I've gone through and selected all the sounds that I think have potential, I will go through a second time, clean them all up using additional EQ and the fades on the audio file, and then rendering each. And then after rendering them, sorting them into a few different file folders. The main one is perk. A lot of these were percussive sounds, so that ended up with a huge list. Most of the stuff went in there. That's the main one. We're going to be using S-Layer as one of our first sound design sessions. So I have 2 S-Layer folders prepared. One that has just interesting sounds and ones that has some good transients. Another important folder is the texture and rustling folder. Rustlin'. That's where I put kind of like the longer form soundscapes of like me rustling things to get the texture of them, because, well, basically we're going to throw them into a plugin called Texture, and like we're going to have our own texture files, and that's going to make more unique sound design. So we can make our own sound. So at this point, we're ready to start doing the first stages of our sound design. We're going to hop into S-Layer or Slayer to use our Foley to make unique and interesting in a variety of cool sounds using our recorded Foley. A lot of our drum sound design going forward is going to be using these unique sounds we create with S-Layer. So it all kind of starts here. And that's the first step of this whole process. We now have our Foley, and we're ready to do all the rest of our sound design. That was the hard part. Now it's all the fun sound design tinkering.
Fuck, I hope I have a good take in there somewhere. Jesus.